Hi, everyone, and welcome to the very first episode recap for Starz original series Outlander, which we've dutifully and creatively entitled Talking Outlander. We are That's Normal and Hypable. We're entertainment fan sites for news and reviews, and oh my god, we cannot think of any TV news we want to review and bring to you more than this show right now. So we're going to introduce ourselves really quickly, tell everyone what we're drinking, and then we're going to get down to talking about the very first episode of Outlander entitled Sassenach. So starting with on the left with Elise, tell us who you are and how big of an Outlander fan you are on a scale of me to Elise.
Hey guys, I'm Elise with That's Normal, and as you might have been able to tell by the scale we developed, I am not an Outlander fan, so you can direct all of your hate to me. Yeah, so I have no idea what's going on here. They dragged me in to see the first episode, and I will be giving my thoughts from a virgin's perspective, an Outlander virgin's perspective, I should clarify. And I am drinking some white wine that I found in the fridge after I got back from Comic-Con, already open. So that's the kind of night I'm having.
Laura?
Hi guys, I'm Laura Byrne-Cristiano from Hypable.com, and I guess I first realized what Outlander was at New York Comic-Con this year when I was covering it in a room that I didn't really know what I was being sent to cover, and I've never seen a reaction of fans like that since Twilight. It was screaming and yelling and 50-year-old women body-checking each other out of the way to get to the microphone to ask Diana and Ron questions, and they hadn't started filming anything yet, and I thought, oh my god, I have to read whatever this is to see what this is about. And I kind of blew through everything Diana wrote between like the end of October and like the end of March. So I'd say I'm a pretty hardcore fan. I guess I'm pretty close up there with the other fans. I guess I just don't have the longevity, so I can't claim the longevity. I plead that I was like pregnant and then like the mother of a toddler when the first books came out. So if anything happened between 1992 and like 2000 or so, like I don't know that happened because I had a toddler. So
that was a long time to have a toddler.
Yeah, well, those terrible twos things, sometimes they go to 4s and 5s, and that's why there's alcohol. So there's a good like 5 years there that I'm not responsible for much having happened.
Next.
I'm Nikki, and I'm from That's Normal, and I'm drinking a can of La Croix, and it's pamplemousse flavor. Sorry, guys, no alcohol. Too early over here. On a scale of Elise to Beth, I think I fall somewhere a little over the middle. I'm a big fan, but I'm somewhere stuck in the second book. Roger Wakefield has shown up, but I don't know what else is going on. So hurry up. I will be there eventually.
Yes.
I was just laughing because I just noticed Nikki's tagline, which said that she was a friend of donuts. And that is so random, and I love it. I am Becca, and I am on a scale of Beth to Elise, or Elise to Beth. I would say I'm probably in the same place as Nikki, a little bit over the middle. Although I am further. I'm in, what book am I in, Beth?
6.
I'm in book 6. I'm in the middle of it. Just in the middle of the book. And then when the TV show happened, and that's it. So I started reading them by Beth's suggestion last July. I was like, give me something to read. And literally a week after I read Outlander, the news that it was coming to TV happened. So I did read it before this news came out. However, I can't claim longevity either. And this evening I am drinking some sort of red wine. I don't remember what it is, and I left the bottle open overnight, so it tastes a little funky, but that's totally fine.
Okay. If there's any question, I'm Beth. I'm from That's Normal as well. And I'm being the number 10 spot on this scale is kind of a misnomer. I'm not the greatest of Outlander fans. I don't have the most longevity. I read the first book in 2010 because I read about it in some Twilight fan fiction, and Bella in that fan fiction told Edward to go get the book, and I was like, what? What's this book? And so I went and got it. I knew no one that had ever read it, and it blew me away, and I sat on the couch and cried. I picked up the second one, cried even more, and I had no one to talk to about it. So I've converted several hundred people since then, and including Becca and Nikki, and I love it, but I've only read through the 5th book because I like to let it savor. And so I have read all of them. I've read the ones that I've read multiple times, but I have not gone on into the later books because I just want to keep Jamie fresh, savor him for a little bit longer. So I am drinking tonight Pinot Grigio, I think, that my husband had in the fridge, and he brought me in. It's been a long time since I had white wine on a video chat, but I'm enjoying it. It's very crisp. So let's get down to our reactions to the very first episode. We all saw it in San Diego. We saw it. Some of us saw it ahead of time. And so we've been waiting and waiting and waiting to tell y'all what we thought. And very quick, first reaction, one sentence, everybody. What is your one sentence reaction to the pilot episode of Outlander? Can we do it? One sentence?
I wasn't ready for that. That's my one sentence.
Oh, gosh. For me, I'm going to say pretty faithful to the book.
Good. Nikki?
Is it next week yet?
I would say, holy shit, Frank, I love you.
Very nice. I think I am going to say, gosh, I don't know either, Elise. And I came up with this question. I'm a terrible person. It blew me away.
Why?
Why?
Yeah. I want to know why.
Okay, well, we'll get to that. I mean, for me, that's my first quick reaction. It did. It blew me away.
It could have gone very badly, and it didn't.
Right. Elise, you got yours now?
Can I? Yeah, I think I've got it. Cut it in half.
All right.
I do think it's probably not fair that we're making Elise answer these questions first, so maybe we want to rethink that.
Yeah. We can go the opposite direction if we want.
I'm ready.
Elise,
I'm fine.
Okay. Well,
bring it.
Obviously, since it's the first episode of the entire series, there are a lot of pivotal moments that readers of the books are waiting for. So let's talk about the opener first. It's this beautiful mountain scenery and like this foreshadowy voiceover. Did it seem weak or cliche of a start to you?
I loved the opening scene. I thought it was gorgeous. Like you mentioned, the cinematography was beautiful. I wanted to go to there immediately. And it's funny you have like the weak part of the question. I did not think it was weak at all until I heard someone say, "Oh, it's like Twilight," and then it was like I couldn't unsee it. But I loved that. It like got me right into that world, and I thought it was just gorgeous.
Are we going in order here, or do you just want us to jump in when we have something to say, Beth? Sorry, I don't remember the rules.
If order's going well, it's fine. But I mean, I think we can jump in. If you don't have anything to say and it's your turn,
Okay.
let's just jump in. It's fine.
Okay. Go ahead, Laura.
Yeah, no, I really liked the whole opening too. Even especially that music is just so haunting. I mean, that score grips you from the word go. I mean, Bear McCreary is kind of like the genius of the the opening music, and that girl's voice is just so haunting, and it just sucks you right in, and just you're like, I don't even know what she's singing. I just want to listen to her. So yeah, no, I was pretty much in, and then just the visuals are just really stunning. Boy, did they nail period right.
Yeah.
That song has been stuck in my head for like a week now. I'm like,
Thank you.
sing this song. Like I'm just going around Los Angeles just singing Yara's version.
Oh my God, yeah.
Let it go.
Same problem. Yeah.
It's like the Frozen soundtrack. all like little girls are walking around singing "Let It Go," and all 50-year-old grandmas are going, "Sing me a song."
You guys missed it because when we first started the chat, I was like, "Are you singing the song?" Because she totally was. She's just like humming along while I was like getting ready. Oh my God.
I had just turned on the episode to kind of catch myself up, so that's why I was just watching it. My
first initial, I loved the initial thing, and so I thought I was really excited to show my husband because he's a music composer, and I was like, you can't wait for you to hear Bear McCreary's music and see it. And so Outlander released the beginning right on video, and so I hadn't watched it, but I had shared it on Facebook. So I said, go to my Facebook and watch it, and I was sitting there while I did, and he was like, it seems like a PBS documentary. So I don't know if it was different or just maybe it was the experience of seeing it and then seeing the show right away that made it feel different, but at least seemed to want to say something in regards to that.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I don't have to like get into this a ton right now, but that PBS documentary is like the words that I was looking for and couldn't find, sort of about many things. We'll come back to that later, but like I kind of agree as an outsider. So.
Yeah, I think that song makes it from go. This is a very female-based show. This song is like, that's sad to even say that a female vocal is supposed to make you think that, but I think it's just the style of the song, and then I mean that beautiful like sound of music on a hilltop like scenery that they show. Like it's beautiful, but I think it's you get the Downton Abbey vibe too. So
yeah,
hey,
I think that the title sequence. Sorry.
Go.
The title sequence for me is different than the very opening scene in turn. Like I feel like if they had dropped us into like Claire running through the woods or in danger or all bloody and you know in trouble or whatever, and then went into the title sequence and the song, I wouldn't have necessarily gotten such kind of a and I don't even want to say womanly vibe because I don't think there's a problem with it being a womanly show, or being because it is about a woman. But maybe if we had dropped it in a little differently, because it is. I mean, as soon as our friend said, "Oh, this reminds me exactly of the opening of Twilight," I mean, it just was in your brain, couldn't get it out, and then you had this really like Celtic kind of title sequence instead of like beats and bodhrans and everything. So it's good. It's just. Maybe I was thinking it would be a little bit like feistier. I don't know.
That's fair.
So our introduction to Claire is kind of different than what we get in the books. We get to see her in action right away. So do you think you get a good sense of who she is before she goes through the stones, like throughout the whole 40s aspect of the show? Do you get a good sense of Claire knowing who she is?
Yeah, I think they had to give that like badass like lady on her own vibe. Like she's capable of taking care of herself and going to the war front, and she knows all of this stuff, like because she's gonna need that backbone when they fall through the stone. So I think it was a good way to establish that badass.
Yeah. I like that it wasn't like an antiseptic hospital. Like you felt like she was just in this medical unit that was, hey, we have to set it up here. They're shelling like 5 miles away from here. That it wasn't like, in a little nurse's uniform with the doctors going, here, nurse, bring me an injection. Like it was very, like you felt like she was almost the doctor in that opening scene. Like she was prepared to absolutely do everything. So I think it almost set that image, and from my perspective, almost better than the books did, because I don't feel like you get that how gritty it was for her, at least in the first book.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think they foreshadowed her future, spoiler, I won't say, but her future profession in that scene, what you just said there, Laura, like foreshadowed just her having that. And I guess that was pretty true. The nurses really had the role. There were few doctors, there were more nurses, so they really had to do a lot more than maybe your average nurse. But yeah, I think it definitely did a lot better job in the books of showing her responsibilities at that point.
And then when she falls back through the stones, it doesn't seem awkward that she's just take charge and she tries to help Jamie and is very mouthy. Given the wartime nursing, like, you just don't think that's awkward at first.
Every time you're on, I laugh at the friend of Jonas. I'm sorry, I can't. It's like,
It's so great.
It says friend of Jonas, and I just imagine you petting a horse.
Donis has a Twitter account. Have you seen Donis the horse's Twitter account?
Yeah,
I love that.
I've met Donis a couple of times. So she's watching. I gotcha. I know ya. What about Frank? I feel like, for me personally, my impression of Frank watching the show is gads above my impression of Frank in the book. My impression of Frank in the book is meh, and my impression of Frank in the show is I need Frank. I need Frank in my life. I want Frank. I love Frank. And I don't know if I'm just projecting my impression of Tobias onto him, but I really think it's the character. I think he's smart, he's sexy, he's charismatic. I want to watch his face a lot. I really love the introduction of Frank in this show.
I think, and perhaps I'm biased, but I think you might be projecting your love of Tobias. Because as someone who is completely new to this, my reaction to Frank was meh. I think this comes up in a lot of my thoughts about some of these questions, but I think I needed more balance between what you're showing me versus what you're telling me. And while I liked the voiceover in some ways, I felt like with Frank, I was told a lot about him, and what I was shown, I actually didn't feel was that important. Like some of his conversations about history, okay, I get it, you're into it. And then I didn't see enough about what she alluded to, his emotional stuff with the war. I would have loved to see some freaking montage with decisions he had to make and things that he would be emotional about. I did not really get to know him at all, I don't think. And she sort of talked about him a lot, and I was just looking for more of that, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's a really great commentary. We get to see her in the wartime, but we hear about what Frank did. We don't see what Frank did in the war. I think that's a great comment. I like Frank in this because I feel like he's more fleshed out. I feel like in the Brooks he's almost very two-dimensional. He's almost a non-entity, and I think about a comment that I think Ron made on one of the panels, that he wanted people to understand why Claire would desperately be trying to get back to Frank and why she wanted something there. What was it that attracted them? And I felt like, for having her get chucked back in time 40 minutes into the first pilot episode, I think they did a pretty decent job of trying to show that she was legitimately attached to Frank and there was a real serious relationship there that she would want to come back to.
Yeah, and I wonder if as you move forward, Elise, and you learn more about what's happening, what's going on, you might feel differently about how they portrayed Frank, because we're obviously approaching this knowing the decisions she's going to make and what she's going to struggle with.
That's possible. I think
also maybe you just don't like sexy British men. Maybe you're just.
That's true. I'm broken. But I do want to say real quick. Crap. Already drunk.
It's all right. Expired white wine. Doesn't every time.
I wanted to say that I totally got that point about showing that she had something to want to come back to, and I wish there had been a little bit more in flashbacks of their relationship before the war, because it was totally realistic that they were kind of strangers at this point after 5 years. Holy crap! But I wanted to see more of what it was like before. I think that would have helped me a little bit.
Yeah.
I think one of the downfalls of the show is going to be that it is only from Claire's perspective. We will never be in someone else's shoes, at least for now. So where in other shows, like Game of Thrones, you can be in 14 different characters' shoes and you can get to learn that backstory, but we don't get that. So I think we're going to struggle a little bit with telling us why Frank is amazing or was amazing or why he's an a-hole later. So
I think the good thing about the visual medium is it might be from her perspective. We might be getting voiceover now. I think the voiceover will taper off, but also you're getting other characters' points of view simply by the camera focusing on that particular person.
Yeah.
So seeing Jamie's response to Claire when she's not necessarily watching him, that's getting Jamie's point of view immediately. It's not as explicit, but I prefer it not to be as explicit. I think that her voiceover is maybe a little bit too explicit sometimes.
Yeah.
But obviously she's setting the stage and we're having to get in her head and know what's going on with her, and that's the only way to do it. And it's kind of awkward that voiceover is a little awkward, but I really can't think of any other way for them to have set the scene and set some of that stuff up. So it's fine. I hope it does taper off though as the action builds and stuff like that. So favorite scene from the 40s half of the episode. Do you have a favorite moment?
Vase.
What did you say, Elise?
I said the vase scene. And it's because it's vase.
Yeah.
Whatever, it's a vase. Okay.
Vase.
Yeah, I thought that was, I feel like I knew her the most at that moment. And first of all, it was gorgeous. I loved how the war scene, the camera shot was actually pretty gritty, as she was talking about how it's like hard to remember, and then it was like a stark difference with like the minute details and like the crystal clarity of that scene. And it was so emotional, and I totally felt right there with her in that moment. Plus, I felt like I could relate to that. Like a thing, like a simple, stupid object can be like, why is my life not different?
Yeah.
I would say, and this is maybe I'm bringing this up too early, but I enjoyed a certain scene in a castle.
Yeah.
I also enjoyed a bedroom scene that I think was after that a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm going to be like the super sexual one here and say that I really loved Frank and Claire's sex. And I'm actually interested, Elise, to hear if you thought it was as sexy as I did.
I did. I thought it was also like, you're going to kill me. Realistically hot.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do I mean?
Kill you.
Huh?
Well, it wasn't all soft lights. It wasn't like all it was very realistic. I thought, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I only said that because Becca makes fun of the sex that I have sometimes.
You're like, yeah, that's like the sex I had last Saturday.
Anyways.
It was very much like Saturday night is basically what Elise is saying.
I did that last week. She's red.
I had issues with the castle scene because it's not canon. It's not a book. It's not book canon, and Laura and I discussed this at Comic-Con. But I did think that the sex was hot. I mean, it's not. They weren't holding anything back, and I wanted to be Claire in that moment for sure.
Yeah. I actually like the other, sort of the precursor to the sex scene where they get into the room and she's kind of eyeing him up and down and has this little smile on her face about, improving his family tree, and then she gets them to kind of loosen up and start jumping on the bed with her, and then that leads into the sex scene. So I kind of liked the foreplay that led into the really good sex scene. That was, I think, my favorite 40s scene.
And I think that scene was great because it showed how young she kind of is.
Yeah.
Claire being kind of really mature because she makes all these mature decisions and she does all this. But really, she's 26 or something. I mean, when I was 26, I was jumping on beds too. I mean, it's just she's still really young. And so I think that was a great way to show that, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. The bed creaking was my favorite part too. It gave a little levity. It was funny. It made them personable, and I want to do that, so.
You want to creak on a bed in Scotland?
Yes,
I do have one.
I want to do that.
Elise?
One thing about the sex scene, though, related to the voiceover, is that as it was getting started, it was like, yes, oh my god, this is so hot, and then the voiceover comes in, and I'm like,
yeah.
Like, no, we get it. Just he's kissing your boob right now. Just let it go. We
Yeah.
We understand.
Some things don't need narration.
Yeah. Especially because she comes in and says, sex was our way back to one another, and sex is the first word she says, and it's like, oh, you killed it.
Yes.
No.
You're right. As he's sucking on her nipple, yes, actually, that was the exact moment. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
All right, my favorite 40s scene is the ghost scene / Frank's figuring out the ghost scene at the end. I loved seeing that moment because it's such a weird moment in the book, and everybody asks about it later, but I thought it was perfect and beautiful. And I loved watching Tobias act that out later on, and watching Frank try to figure out what he saw. I mean, I honestly, I think my favorite scenes are always going to be about Tobias's face. So that's just going to be what I like the most.
I have a question. I'm holding up my pocket, Jamie, to ask one.
Okay.
Elise, because I'm just really interested in our Outlander virgin's perspective of that ghost scene. Because we're talking about a show that we're fans of it, but what did that mean to you as somebody who doesn't, more than the average person, let's be honest, because you've had to hear us talk about it for a year. But what did that mean to you as a non-fan?
It was initially like a little bit cheesy to me because it was sort of obvious to see what was going to happen. I didn't know the exact meaning of which I have kind of inferred now, which is he's looking back at her. But I don't know, it seemed potentially
looking back at her.
I just meant, my interpretation right now is that it's a ghost of him. He was clearly in love with her.
Who?
Oh,
a
Jamie.
ghost of who? Okay, Jamie. Okay. I just want to hear you say that. Thank you.
Oh, no, that part is painfully obvious. Okay. That's what I meant by cheesy, is that it's not ooh, who was that? It's okay, I get it.
Kilt and tip you off.
Yeah, I mean, he's wearing a kilt and all that stuff. But yeah, I felt like it was a little bit too much added suspense there, which I think I'll actually bring up later again. There are some things where it's assume that we're a little bit smarter.
Right. Yeah.
So I think that, I don't know what it was like in the book, but maybe there was another detail or something else that could have been more of a meat to the scene instead of laying it all on the suspense of who this is. It's I know who it is. I got it.
Yeah. Well, in the book you wouldn't know. There's no Jamie at that point. Yeah. You have no idea what's going on.
Yeah. I think TV and movies in general sometimes act like the audience is stupid. And they have to spell everything out. Well, actually, your audience is probably a lot smarter, but that's a whole other side rant.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about the Through the Stones moment. Ron Moore's talked about it a lot and how he went directly, instead of a weird sci-fi thing, went directly with something that's described in the book, and how she falls through, how it feels when you fall asleep in the back of a car, and that's how they portrayed it. So did you think it was a cop-out, or was it a legit way to show that moment, which is the one, kind of mystical moment?
I feel like if it had gone very special effects-ish, we would have lost that 1940s vibe in a heartbeat. I feel like I would have been totally thrown out into this futuristic world and then gone to Scotland in the 1740s. I think part of me would have liked to have had an effect, but I feel like whatever effect came up might have been too modern, and then instantaneously I would have been dropped out of the scene. So I feel like part of me misses it, but maybe that's okay.
Yeah.
I loved it because, hell, I would love to know what time travel feels like, but that's such a lofty, unattainable thing to even imagine, that I had never even thought of connecting it to that feeling of being weightless and kind of whipped around, and I thought it was great. Again, I think no matter how high your budget is, any effect you're going to put in there is going to be ooh. So I thought it was a really great choice to keep you there and to also do what I would assume is desired, which is like make you be able to relate to that feeling. So that was awesome.
Yeah.
Totally.
And I
agree.
loved how she woke up in a different color. I mean, it's like immediately the 40s is kind of muted, and then all of a sudden you see her and her hair looks amazing, and she's laying there, and it's like it's not quite Wizard of Oz, but she's all of a sudden saturated, and you knew she was somewhere else immediately.
Yeah, I thought it was great. That's all I have to say about that.
Yeah.
Actually,
I also really liked I really liked the effect of the car too. I liked how they kind of did that very slow-mo and everything was like spinning and turning. I thought the way they did it with the car was really effective. I really liked how that looked.
Yeah. Although I kept wondering, who was she riding with? Like, when is Claire like hanging out in a car? She doesn't have parents. Who are these people? Like, who's she just hanging out in the backseat of the car with?
Well, the car went off the bridge, and I can't remember. I don't really remember that scene from the book for whatever reason. I don't know why. And I remember thinking, so was everybody really? Did they really get hurt, or like, did they fall into the water? How did they survive? Like, yeah, for a second there, I wanted to know what the other effect of that was.
Die? Yeah.
Yeah, me too. All right, so we've talked a little bit about Tobias, or I have, how he's quickly our new favorite for a lot of reasons. But basically, his transformation, even in such a short scene, for me, it's remarkable, but it might be just because I love him. But so what do you think of the first of his many rapey encounters with Claire?
Oh, here, I'll jump in here real quick because I think I leaned over to Nikki and I said, I am going to have a really hard time with you-know-what towards the end. And I don't want to spoil it for people who may be watching that are new viewers to Outlander, and especially Elise, too. But, I mean, there's some intense scenes that are coming up. And because we've gotten to interview him and he's such a lovely person, and then because I love him as Frank, I really am struggling with seeing him as Blackjack. Like, these are difficult. I'm having a hard time hating him. And he's such a horrible character. And, I'm not looking forward to it. Like, closing my eyes, like when I closed my eyes when she was mending the bone or whatever during that surgery scene is probably what I'm going to do for the majority of the second half of the season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was easy to start to hate him because he had a clip-in ponytail, and I thought it was that was gross. And he just had a complete like countenance change of like from the Frank and even from like his Game of Thrones character, and like just had a very hardened look and very like, ugh, I don't want to, like, I'm not really into that. Can we go back?
He's a good actor, is what you're saying.
What?
He's a good actor, is what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He was an actor and acting in the moment, but I want to burn that ponytail. So
yeah, seriously. I have to say I was not a huge fan of the wig, but I didn't get like a skin crawl moment from him. Mm-hmm. And I feel like in the books it's sort of a character that's you get a skin crawl moment. I mean, he's violent. He's exerting his power. It's like that rape is a crime of violence and power and control, and I absolutely got that aspect of it, but I didn't get a skin crawl moment off of it. I also didn't feel like I felt like any woman that this is probably something he's done before, but I didn't get a skin crawl moment off of it. I don't know if that makes any sense or not. But
I didn't get that from the encounter with Claire, but I did with the one with Jenny. Because when he licks her face and then he rips her open and he makes Jamie look at his own sister's chest, I was like, you are the worst. You are the literal worst. And then watching him horsewhip Jamie for a little while, I mean, he was into it.
So no, wait a minute. Is that first or second episode though? Because I couldn't remember.
What is it?
No.
It is the second episode. I'm sorry.
That's why.
Mother effing alert.
Forget it. Forget I said any of that.
Yeah, because that's what I was saving for. Because I thought episode 2 he did. So yeah, right. Episode 1.
You shut me up a long time ago.
I'm going to. I remembered it wrong. Yeah.
Forget I said anything.
JK. Hey everyone.
Just kidding. That didn't happen.
For his very, very first introduction, I actually wrote. I can't believe I wrote this. I said he wasn't really unique in his rapiness.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
Pretty classic.
it's not like a shock, which is so terrible, but he didn't really have any, didn't immediately appear to have any defining traits other than his aggression and, like, yeah, I would assume that, like, a lot of guys were like that. So that wasn't immediately clear to me. But I have to say, I am very interested to see how you guys handle, like, throughout the season, because I imagine the fact that he looks like Frank is, like, a little bit easier to swallow in the books and, like, easier to forget. But if you're actually seeing him, like, that's going to be probably more weird.
Yeah.
And I love this conversation with Elise right now because, of course, as his book lovers, she does not know the full extent of what's going to happen and about Blackjack. And so I would love to, like, once we find out, once that is revealed, bring this conversation back for what Elise said about him being like a stereotypical rapist or whatever you just said.
Yeah, hello.
Does he get really nice?
No,
Super sweet.
we're not saying. No spoilers.
He's a sweetheart. All right, we've got to talk about Jamie, you guys. So, first impressions of Jamie. And go.
This is his perfect hair length. Dark hair back to the short kind of shag. I have a big hair thing, as you can tell. Don't do the Kindle long hair. But he came off very strong and very protective, too.
Yeah. Just really real. I mean, it could be very easy to overplay it and make it very sappy, and I felt like he didn't do that. I think he has a lot of dimensions and emotion in his face, and just as someone who is a redhead, as a generality, I'm not really attracted to redheaded guys. Okay, so this would be an exception. A lot. So yeah, I was having a little trouble concentrating, so yeah.
I think for me, I remember a time when I was reading the book last year that I texted Beth from a train station. I take the train to work every day. So I'm sitting in my car at the train station, I'm reading, of course, not going to work, and texting Beth being like, oh my gosh, Jamie is the guy? I didn't know. When Diana wrote it, I didn't know in that shoulder scene that he was going to be the guy eventually. I had no idea. They made that clear in the show, which I'm very glad. I wish I had known. And maybe if I read the back of the book, I would have known. But I don't read backs of books because I read it on a Kindle. So, I think it was clear. There's this immediate connection between the two of them, which I don't know is as clear in the book. And I really liked it. And it definitely, again, I'm Team Tobias, the man, but I obviously Jamie Fraser is the best ever. So, he was nice. I liked him. He did a great job. Beth?
I love him. I mean, I love Jamie so much. It's hard to not be happy just seeing him and seeing him sit there. I thought Sam was better than I thought he was going to be. I got to be honest. We've written and talked about Sam so much, and I've been very happy with what we've seen so far, but all of the trailers made him look a little stilted, or he didn't quite look like, he wasn't quite and it was not the case watching the episode. No. I mean, watching the episode, it was like he was fully in that moment. He was fully Jamie. Even the very beginning, after she fixes his shoulder and she isn't looking at him, but Dougal says, "Can you ride?" And he's still staring at her, and he says, "I." And you're just like, he loves her already. Oh my God! And it was great. It was perfect. And the scene where he's telling her that he's going to put her over his shoulder, I was like, okay.
Yeah, I think it made me really excited to see him a couple episodes from now, or even 8 episodes from now, like full in Jamie Fraser mode. Like, I'm so excited. Like, he's gonna kill it. I really think he's gonna do a great job.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
My main reaction is that
I hate him.
What?
No, sorry.
They should just try to put dirt on him as much as possible. Because he looks really hot when he's covered in dirt and blood and sweat. And that's my opinion.
I love that scene where he's telling her she's going to be safe, because she's with him, and then she goes, and what if I'm not? Like, literal, like, flip-flop in the stomach, heartbreak, melt moment. Like, he was, both of them. That was wonderful.
Yeah.
That's episode 2 too.
That's episode 2, guys.
Just,
Damn it!
sorry.
It's hard. It's hard to remember.
Maybe
I feel
spoiler
it.
alert.
I didn't want to rewatch it.
I know. I'm sorry, everybody.
Sorry. Ignore that.
So speaking of the shoulder scene, I was actually pleasantly surprised with how gruesome some of the medical stuff was, but that one to me was worse than the leg wound. So
Yeah, I thought it was.
Yeah.
I mean, we've already said they've got plenty of sex that I wasn't expecting like titty action. So the sex and the violence already are way above what I anticipated they were going to be. So are we on? Is everybody cool with that? Is that what you anticipated?
Yeah. I thought it was realistic looking enough. I mean, it's premium cable, you know. I mean, if somebody was expecting something different, hello folks, it's premium cable. I thought it was good. I thought it was realistic. It's what it needed to be without being gratuitous or being completely whitewashed. So I thought it was fine. It wasn't like Game of Thrones where they started calling it like sexposition.
Right.
Like I didn't feel like it was like that. I felt like it was all very necessary to the story, other than I know the one little quibble that the two of us have, Beth.
Yes.
But yeah.
Just little quibble.
Cunnilingus. You have a quibble with cunnilingus.
No, I love cunnilingus. I don't have a problem with cunnilingus at all.
I just have a problem with who.
Yeah. I mean, there's the aspect of the fact that Frank didn't in the books. She explicitly states that Frank doesn't do that to her, and so it made a distinction between Jamie and Frank in the books. I mean, obviously there's more distinction between them than just that, but it was one distinction, and so I felt like it was, you know, there were other acts that they could have done in that moment that would have kept it canon. And you know, we've talked about it. I talked to Diana about it. I talked to Chris Parnell about it, and I'm cool with it now. But the first time I saw the episode, I was like, oh no, that didn't happen. So
yeah, same thing. Like you know, the scene where they're having, you know, sex, and what later becomes in another episode, you'll realize what specific location that is in Castle Leoch, and why it's kind of ironic as to why they're having sex in that location. But I would have been totally fine with just about any other form of sex in that location. It was just, it's like, okay, Frank goes down. No.
like Frank doesn't go down.
No.
And I just liked it because it was hot. But you're totally right. When it comes to later, when that being her first time with Jamie, like, that's like the one thing she had with him. And obviously we're kind of spoiling a little bit, like the innocence of their relationship. And so, yeah, I totally agree that wasn't necessary. They could have totally just, like, done it in that location.
Yeah.
And also, it's interesting that it's confirmed later what location that is, but I was right. I mean, I guessed where it was. Is that obvious one where they are in the castle? We don't have to say where it is, but I knew where it was.
Yeah, I guessed it too. Yeah, I was like, oh, I bet you this is where.
I think that's supposed to be obvious to the fans.
Yeah, I think so too. So, do you feel that the final voiceover is necessary? Like the very final, where Claire is saying, you know, if I can get out of here alive, blah blah blah. I mean, how would you have ended the episode to keep people coming back for more? If it was Netflix, I mean, would you go on to the next one immediately, based on the way they ended this one?
I was really disappointed. I thought that was, it actually brought me out of it a lot, and it was very book-like, really. So I think it was a very big nod to the books potentially. But when I was typing up my notes, I said it's again one of those moments like, assume your audience is a little bit more intelligent. I'd rather have some sort of cliffhanger at all, even if it's not like a huge one. I'd rather have that like oh my god, I want to know what happens next kind of thing, instead of, and my journey had only just begun. I wrote that without remembering those were the exact words. Like I was writing that as a joke. And yeah, it was just, it felt kind of like a slap in the face. Like, oh, come on, like I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a bit sappy. I think it should have ended on a high action moment, especially if you're trying to attract, you know, folks who haven't read the books. they could have ended on some like ambush or something in the forest, anything to just like, this is like crazy out here. This is the Wild West. So
right.
Yeah.
Or even just ending it before the castle. Like have next week be starting with like the castle. Like you could have had it, where are you going? You're going to find out. Or have her not realize where they're heading. Like that would have been, I'm captive enough. I don't know where I'm going. Yeah, I agree with you there.
yeah, I think there's going to be like a hard line for them to toe of whether to go hardline book or to be open for some interpretation. And I think these first episodes, I think they are trying to toe the line of book just because these fans are so intense about it. But I think with Diana having said several times that it's really up to Ron to do some interpreting, I hope that opens them up to, allowing something a little more exciting.
Yeah. I would definitely agree with that, because obviously we've seen a couple more episodes than we're talking about right here, and it does feel a little bit like they're sticking a little too true to the book than they need to. I think as long as the adaptation is wonderful and beautiful and keeps true to the story and the core of it, run free. I mean, that's my perspective. Of course, I haven't been, connected to this for 20 plus years, but I just think, I mean, if the artistic, if it needs to have this certain artistic bend, it needs to have this bend. I'm going to trust that to somebody who's done, Battlestar Galactica and been very successful.
Yeah. I mean, I would say I'm like Miss costume drama junkie. I'm just like a pathetic little costume drama BBC junkie, pretty much. You name it, I've seen it. And then I'm also like fantasy is like my other like real sweet spot. So for me, this is like the kind of series I always watch. So as a fantasy costume drama person, I totally would have gone to the next episode, which I did. But if that wasn't my sweet spot, I don't know if I would have done that.
Right. I think it would have felt almost complete for me. I'd be like, oh, well, she's off to the castle, and where will her journey take her? And I wouldn't necessarily be like, oh my God, what happens to this girl? Whereas if they had, if Jamie had like picked her up and put her on the horse and they'd run off with all the Highlanders, you might have been like, what the heck's gonna happen to her? And made it look like the Crenna Dune and Cocknum and Rot are not too far behind her, and she can't get to it. You know what I mean? Like just let it ride, and instead of being so explicit about what's happening. So that would have been my choice. I think it would have ended on a bigger bang. But I'm obviously going to watch them all more than once. So.
Oh yeah.
Can we get an overall like Outlander virgin perspective from Elise? Because Elise, you had said your first initial thing was cut it in half, but you haven't talked about that yet. And I would say, for me, I remember looking probably towards the end, like I loved it. I thought it was beautiful. I thought it was so amazing. I tweeted something about them killing it, but I used the word kilt. I wrote that tweet before it was over because I was so like in love and enamored with this episode. But at the same time, I looked at Nikki and I was like, is this more than 1 hour? Because it felt long.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing that Elise is going to tell us about. So let me just throw that to her.
Yeah, so I think the whole PBS documentary thing was definitely how I felt for the first half before she goes back in time. I wasn't sure why we were spending so much time on this because no individual piece seemed that important. And then when we went back in time, it was like action, like I get it, and then I felt a little bit more like, okay, you were probably trying to show the what's the word I'm looking for? Like vast difference between those two time periods. So by cut in half, I really mean keep the latter half and give me little bits of the time before as much as I need to know. Like, is it really that important that I hear all of Frank's like history obsession or like all of the things about the holidays? And I don't know, maybe it is, but like maybe show me those as flashbacks in later episodes when they're important.
That's
and I think that's the difference. I think that it is important because I thought the first half of the book was boring. But then I find out later, oh gosh, I should go back and read the first half of the book because we are learning a lot here. But I do think that visually, they probably should have done that better in flashbacks.
Yeah, so I think my other big complaint is variety in scenes and scene length and shots. There were a lot of very long scenes, and I think I would have appreciated those more if they were followed by, if there was more of a variety of like quick and fast-paced things when it was appropriate. So again, like I loved the vase scene. That was really important, and that felt like really special and meaningful. But it should have stood out as that like moment of silence in between all of this like rushing energy. And in that way, I really did feel like obviously they have a huge book following, and these kind of adaptations are always really difficult. But I did feel like they were following the book potentially a little bit too carefully. And especially in the first few episodes, you're not going to hook me as a new viewer. I think.
Well, I'm going to call out something that Elise you told us. I'm going to throw you under the bus here on the camera. You told us originally if you didn't know us and you weren't our friends, 20 minutes in, you probably would have turned it off.
Yeah. So that's the thing of like, it's not even like once I got to the end would I watch the next one. I'm not sure about that. But if I was watching this at home, I wouldn't have finished the episode because it just nothing was happening and nothing meant anything to me. There were no stakes. I didn't have any reason to believe that something would happen. But I do think as far as like book adaptations go, I've talked about Game of Thrones before, but that's potentially not really fair. It's a movie, but I actually think like Harry Potter is a good example of a case where there's so much detail in those books, and like there are a lot of things that they cut out of each movie, and yet because it's so exciting and because it works in film form and they made it so entertaining, people don't like end up griping for that long about the things that they cut out because it works. Yeah. I would err on that side of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or even the things they asked that maybe Diana forgot or didn't think about.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I liked the narration. I just felt like sometimes the pace of the narration was a little slower. Like the tempo of the voiceover could have been a little more varied and cut down to some extent. But some of it was going on like, listen to me, you need to know this. And it was just like, okay, just, maybe a little more stress here and there. Or just take out some of it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's go back real quick and say favorite moments from the second half of the episodes. Favorite moments from after she goes to the stones.
I love Jamie pitching her off the horse. Is that stupid?
No. She's like so perplexed. She's like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, why did you just knock me down?
Yeah. I sort of loved him just sort of chucking her off into the weeds, taking care of business, and then picking her back up again. I love that.
Yeah.
I liked some of the jokes, kind of like the things that had happened between the Highlanders and like just some of the funny little things that I didn't think it was going to be as funny. Like they were definitely, having a few laughs there, and I thought that was a nice change from this like heavy subject matter and heavy material.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I was pleasantly surprised by the attraction between Claire and Jamie because, again, like I said, I did not notice that in the book. And maybe I'm just an idiot and I need to reread it. And full confession, I've only read Outlander once because I continued on and then I haven't read since. Mm-hmm. I've been reading a lot of Regency romance. And, I think, I can't remember. It wasn't the first scene, obviously, the shoulder. And maybe I'm getting confused with the second episode, but I don't think I am. I think there's another scene in the first where I just thought, okay, this is going to be good. No?
Yeah, it's the second. I think it's the second if it's what I'm thinking.
Second? Okay.
No, because my favorite scene in this episode, and y'all stop me, like put your hands up if I'm talking about something that's in the second episode, but when he goes back to get her at the creek and he says, Dougal and the other guys are going to meet you at the end of this brook.
Yeah.
You're going to get on this horse with me. And she's like, I'm not.
No,
He's like, yes, you are. Like, that was my favorite scene because it was very Jamie and Claire already fighting, but he's already, like, beating her with logic. He's like, if you don't, I'm just gonna put you on my shoulder. You want me to hurt my shoulder again? Like, okay, then let's go.
And you don't look very heavy. I'm gonna carry you. You know. Yeah.
I thought that scene was perfect. He was sexy. I didn't understand everything he said, which was also perfect because I can't understand Scots. And they were hot together, and they were already fighting, and it was just, that was my favorite scene. It was very, it was like, it was a good, like, portent of wonderful things to come in the rest of the series, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so excited to see their relationship blossom. Yeah. Like, really excited.
Me too.
Yeah, I think
watch stuff.
All in all, it was awesome first episode. Like, I think I could get some guys to watch that with me.
I agree.
Yeah. The other thing I sort of like too, and it's sort of a subtle undercurrent, but like most of the guys that are along for the journey there are not like overly bright. Dougal's a bright guy, and you see him right away grasp, she's got a skill set and I need her. Like, I may not trust who she is, but you know, she fixed the shoulder, she fixed the gunshot wound, you know, even just down to the give him the belt.
Yeah.
Like, he like clearly is a very intelligent guy that rapidly assessed the situation, and it would have been really easy to say, oh, you stupid woman, get out of the way, you know, you stupid Sassenach, you know, Englishwoman, get out of the way. And he's just like, no, I mean, man, a few words, give her the belt. Like, he's just getting business done. So I really loved those really short, tight reveals about Dougal, too, in that time frame.
I love me some Dougal, too.
Yeah, Graham McTavish, he's so charming. I loved him, too. I think he's a very charming man.
He's very charming and very strong. Literally, like, rock hard.
What did you do to feel his hardness?
Very strong.
I also had the realization, I think, like 2 minutes after talking to him on the red carpet, that his last name McTavish is also Jamie's.
Yes.
Name. I was like, oh my god, it's the same name. They totally cast him because of that. But he's awesome.
That was the only reason.
Yeah. He's very tall too. Like, I mean, I'm 5'8". I mean, you're tall too, Nikki. And I just remember thinking, I have to look up. Like, there are not many guys that I have to actually tilt my head to make eye contact, and I did. So yeah.
He just has a great face too.
Yeah.
Just something about his face is great.
You also like his sporin.
And I like his sporin.
Got good stuff in there.
Yeah, he does.
So, real quick, just real rapid fire. Who had the worst perm, Claire or Jamie?
Oh, God, Jamie.
Jamie, especially coming up when it gets all
frizzy.
80s and a Trans Am.
80s and a Trans Am.
Yeah. It wasn't her. I mean, I've seen worse, though. It wasn't, I mean, it could have been better, but it could have been a whole lot worse.
Yeah. I thought they both looked fine in this episode. I don't have a problem with it. Her hair, I thought, actually looked beautiful in a lot of places. Like,
yeah.
Gorgeous.
Yeah, like even when she was brushing out the curls, I thought it looked pretty good there. Yeah.
Yeah. When she comes out through the stones and she's laying there on the grass, I mean, her hair is like amazing.
Perfectly.
Maybe like curly hair. Yeah, it's perfect. Which shouldn't be, but it was. What do you think will be the worst fan reaction? Like, once the majority of fans have seen it, I mean, we know that everybody saw it at the premiere, and so a lot of people have seen it already, but what's the moment that's going to, in this particular episode, that you think fans are going to be up in arms about? Is it going to be the cunnilingus scene, or will it be something else?
Cunnilingus.
Yeah.
The only other quibble I think that maybe people would have, but I feel like in future seasons they could get around it, book fans may have wanted to see Baby Roger. I know I kind of wanted to see little glimpse of Baby Roger somewhere. I mean, I could totally see in other seasons how you could totally write around that, but I would have liked to have just seen that little baby glimpse of Roger.
We might. I mean, they've been doing flashbacks. I think that we might get that. They might show some more of Reverend Wakefield's area. And doing it. So
I think during the screening, I turned to Becca and said, Roger Wakefield. Like, I literally thought he was just going to show up in the scene. Like, even as just like a wink. But that would have been a nice wink, but whatever.
I think we'll see him.
Yep.
Your most gifable moment, like if you had a 2-second gif of any particular spot in the episode, what would be your gif moment?
Obviously, mine is going to be Castle Leox Conolinga's moment.
I don't think that would make a very good gift.
I mean, it would for my private time.
Oh my. I think we already gift like a really good one of Frank and Claire together in the bed.
Yeah.
Yeah, the knee.
Yeah,
the
I
Hot.
think that's what we already did.
Mrs. I forget. It's not Mrs. Fitz downstairs. The lady who's yes, the lady of the bed and breakfast, of just her kind of looking up at the swaying chandelier. Like that's a giftable moment right there. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, that's Mrs. Baird, but yes, that is a
Baird,
cute
yes.
moment. Yeah.
Right.
Mine, I think, would actually. I've got two. One is when Jamie is still staring. I already mentioned it. When he's still looking at her when he tells Dougal I. When he doesn't look at Dougal and he doesn't look away, he's still staring at Claire. He says I. It still hurts. And my other one would be Angus when she asks for his belt and he goes, "What, me?" Like he's asking me for a belt. Like I want to. I'd use that reaction gif every day.
Yeah.
That's my giftable moment for sure.
It was awesome.
So any last thoughts before we talk about real quick next week in our big exclusive giveaway?
Woo! I don't think so. Good job. Round of applause for Starz and Ron Moore.
Absolutely. Next week, we're going to have another Google Hangout for the second episode, which is called Castle Leoch, and unfortunately, we've given a little bit of them away, so just forget that we said that. Everyone, we've all seen it, but we have lots of opinions about that episode. So if you're watching this at home, be sure to subscribe to the channel below. Click the link on our post. That'll take you to That's Normal, and you'll learn all the rules for our very exclusive Outlander swag giveaway. While we were at Comic-Con this week, there was a beautiful Castle Leoch there, and they gave out all kinds of good stuff, and we have one of everything for you. We've got a big exclusive package that's got a tote bag, one of these tote bags. It's not signed, but one of these tote bags. It's got a shot glass, a pin, an iPhone cover, a bandana, a t-shirt, and a signed poster by everybody, Ron, Diana, and all of the cast that were there. And that is our big exclusive full package giveaway. What you're going to need to do for that is going to be in the rules of our posts. But share this video. The more shares that you have, the more entries you have for that giveaway, and we'll have little other giveaways also past the grand prize. So make sure that you click on that and subscribe so that you know where all those rules are and how you can get it. So thanks for tuning in. We cannot wait to do this every week with every episode. We'll have different people in and out, and we'll have some special guests, and it's Talking Outlander, you guys. You're going to get to talk with us, so get excited.
Woo! Thank you!
Bye.